So, welcome to Late Night Thoughts with TC. Well, you won't watch this late night, but it's not even all that late, actually. It's like 10-ish, and I'm walking back from dropping my vehicle off at the service center yet again, for the same problem, it looks like. Service center does a great job, but vehicles are technology, and technology fails. So anyway, if you're watching this, make sure you're subscribed and make sure you're checking out the little bell icon thing down below. So anyway, late night thoughts with TC. What's on my mind? Well, let's see here. I've been thinking about critical thinking, and I've been thinking about ideas. And one of the things that I think's been disturbing me the most is the reality that not only are we not teaching critical thinking in schools anymore, let's be honest, we're not. Government schools, government propaganda centers, government education centers, you call them public schools, but they are really government education, government propaganda, government indoctrination centers. That's what they are. They're no longer interested in teaching, save for some teachers, but overall, the curriculi, the entire goal of government schools now is not to teach critical thinking. It's not to teach critical thought. Instead, it's to mold students into societally acceptable automatons, worker bees that go about doing everything that the government school and that the government wants them to do. Now, we see this manifested in the Soviet Union. Students in the schools there were railroaded, if you will, or guided down a path that the government determined was best for them. There was no autonomy. You couldn't have a kid who grew up on the wrong side of the tracks. And I mean, quite frankly, in the Soviet Union, was there a right side of the tracks? But you couldn't have a kid from a part of the city or the community or the municipality who maybe was coming from a place of destitution, who could say, you know what, I think I'm going to go off to university and I'm going to get a doctorate in medicine, or I'm going to get a doctorate in philosophy, or a Juris Doctorate. They just didn't do that. They gave you test after test after test, and they grilled you and interviewed you and indoctrinated you, and they did that to ascertain what they thought would be the best fit for you. And that's a little bit of what's going on with a lot of guidance counselors, vocational counselors in government schools today. They steer people away from their dreams and tell them, well, you need to be grounded, you need to be realistic. What can you do? What should you be doing? What are your skill sets? And there's not necessarily anything, inherently wrong with that, but the problem with that is it flies in the face of individualism. It's a very much an example of that collectivist mentality that is so aberrant, for one, and yet so absolutely, fundamentally, powerfully in place and manifest in society and in our schools. Now, how does this relate to critical thinking? Well, they've become so focused on not teaching critical thinking that what they've created are these followers, these sheep, these little mini collectivists who don't question anything. Nothing gets questioned anymore. I mean, they'll push back against certain types of thought, and they'll push back against certain types of ideological positions, but they don't really question ideas. They don't question thought. They don't question philosophical statements. And they just kind of spout gibberish. They parrot back to you what's been spoon-fed them, or even syringe-fed them. Think feeding a baby bird in captivity. They just kind of regurgitate that, and they don't think about whether or not what they're saying is true. They just know they've been told to think that what you think is untrue or invalid or dangerous. And so, there again, it's a lack of critical thought. See, the whole point of critical thinking is not that we accept every idea that comes our way, whole cloth, and because it happens to maybe sound like it aligns with us, or aligns with our ideology, it means that when we're approaching thought critically, when we're approaching ideas and ideologues and dogmatists, when we're approaching them with critical thought, even those people that apparently agree with us, or those people that apparently share our worldview, what we do is we question their ideas. We rip their ideas to shreds. Our goal is not to affirm their idea. Our goal is not to prove their idea. Our goal should be to challenge their idea and examine it and see if their idea is true. Now, obviously, we have to have an objective source of truth to be able to ascertain what truth is. But regardless, we have to challenge ideas and see if their ideas are right. We have to challenge their ideas and see if their ideas are correct. And then, after subjecting it, that idea that we're being told about, that a person is sharing with us, after we have digested it, and by digested, I literally mean take it in and break it down to see if there's anything worth calling sustenance in it. After we've done that, and we determine, hey, this is a good idea or this is a bad idea, then we begin to interact with it. Now, sometimes that can be done in a split second. Sometimes you can hear the folly of something like critical race theory. Sometimes you can hear the folly of something like Marxist ideology and know immediately that it's a bad idea. But there are going to be other times where you might hear something and go, I don't know, I need to digest this. And that's the whole point of critical thinking. That's the whole point of critical thought. So why is that important? And what's that got to do with Minnesota Black Robe Regiment and NTC? It's because it's missing today. My channel exists because most people today, Christians and non-Christians, atheists and agnostics, for the most part, really don't know why they believe what they believe. Most of them don't really know why they espouse the mentalities and the ideas that they do. They have no idea. They just espouse it. And it's the same in many career fields today. Most people in their career fields have no idea why they do the things they do, or think the things they think, or say the things they say. They just know it's part and parcel of their career field, so they do it. And that's how we begin to fundamentally change what's happening in our country right now. We're in a war, but right now it is a war of ideologies. It's a war of intellect. It's a war of logic. And one of the sides of this war, one of the combatants in this war, has fundamental critical thought on its side, and the other side doesn't. It doesn't have critical thinking on its side. It has emotionalism and emotional interactions and overreactions. And that's their weapon, that's their tool. And that's what they're training their soldiers with. And so those of us on the more conservative constitutionalist side, they're again Christian, non-Christian, atheist, agnostics, we have to be logical. We have to use critical thinking. We have to use critical thought. And not in the same way that critical race theory does. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about the skill of intellectual, critical thought. We need that. We need that more now than ever, because if we don't engage that way, and we don't teach the people around us to think that way, if we don't expect other people to interact with us that way, we'll lose. You have to be able to dismantle bad ideas, but to do that, you have to first think through every idea that you hear to determine where it's right, where it's wrong, and how to reject that. Because without that, it's like going into a gunfight with a rubber band. It's not going to work. Unfortunately, for most of the part, Constitutionalists and conservatives, Patriots, when they take their time, they're capable of that kind of critical thought. And now we need to bring that to bear on everything that we say and do. And everything that people say to us and do in the name of their ideological positions. That's why critical thinking is so important. And that's what it has to do with my channel. So until next time, sic semper tyrannis.